Hi, everybody. So today I'm going to be presenting my senior capstone project, which is queer baiting and the very gay tropes on our screens. So the introduction. Queer media is massive. It's a safe space for queer creators to share and promote their stories. Television is a main source of focus for this research, and storylines and characters who are written to be involved in the LGBTQIA have been done successfully. Yet there have been some misses in the industry. From watching such failures, as the researcher, there are issues I need to bring into conversation. So my research question being, how does queerbaiting, the Barry gaze trope, or misrepresentations ruin the potential of queer television characters along with the LGBTQIA image? So this background motivation, the reason why I decided to choose this project was because I found that, you know, a conversation needed to happen. I've heard these terms before, but I just never had the chance to talk about it with anybody, or just see how it really does affect people. And these issues aren't common. Just thinking about, I had like so many ideas, so many TV shows, so many other sources to include in this paper, and it's so common. And these definitions need to be known by others, by people. Like, even when I type out the definitions of my themes, I didn't my definition didn't match other people's definitions. So just seeing how like people react and how people define these things, I find it's important to talk about. So let's go to my literature review. So I picked three themes for my literature review, being queer media, queer baiting, and the very gay trope. So queer media, it's for viewers of the LGBTQIA to be inspired and to come out and accept their sexuality. That's the goal. That's what it promotes. Yet there are misrepresentations. Characters are written to usually have sad and dramatizing storyline, which is mentioned in an article from the author Diaz. And usually, like, we can say, like, these portrayals can change the attitudes and remove hate from the community. Yet, being portrayed as weak and or written as a joke, it's not good representation. So moving on to queer baiting, we understand it's a negative aspect of the queer media. And an article by Weds in 2021, there was interviews where participants were asked how queer baiting affected them. And one of the main, themes that I saw and was interested is the issues of queer baiting. And within this theme is three subgroups, being defining queer baiting, impacts on identity development, and exploitation of queer individuals. So when we define queer baiting, some found it as an unrealized, ill-written perception of queer culture, while others think queerbaiting as a plus publicity stunt. There you go. As for the impacts on identity development, participants spoke on how queerbaiting may cause some confusion and questioning of identities, not just from the self, but also others. And lastly, the exploitation of queer individuals. Participants say how writers and producers don't always understand between representation and exploitation. They can create a target on already vulnerable group, and this is just for profit. And as for the bury your gays trope, BYG, just to make it shorter, there's a research by Tesler that's done in 2017 where it showcased how the lesbian communities are like the main targets of this trope. When favorite queer female characters are killed off, it affects the fans. Sometimes programs showcase these queer couples as like something so beautiful and has so much potential. Yet they shoot it down when it's either official or they have a beautiful moment together. Like, any sign of joy, they just kill it. And so, like, fans get so excited and then just that sudden stop. It makes fans question, like, is it really gonna be a happy ending for me? And or if it's just like really far out reach. It does become personal, and grief can be long lasting since fans can be so passionate about their shows. And speaking of like gaps, I know I wanted to explore more categories in queer media. I wanted to include film along with the television show, with more television shows and even music videos. I Um, I did mention a few times, I believe, in my research paper, just like references how the lesbian community hyposexualizes or are hyposexualized by society. And again, this just wasn't enough time, and I feel like this is just the hyposexualization is can be done in a research, and I really promote it. And speaking of my research, my study is mainly a qualitative with a table and score system. And all this information is together, and it's going to be on my next slide. So yeah, methodology. I did use a table and a score system to organize it. On my left-hand screen, we see that my ratings is 0 to 5. 0 being no signs of queer baiting and 5 being all signs on the either the BYG or queer baiting. And just to move forward towards the table that I'm presenting right now from findings analysis, we see different episodes were chosen by myself, obviously, core characters being Maya St. Germain, Sarah Harvey, Shayna Fringe, Charlotte, and Allison De Laurentiis. So let's move on to that final analysis. So from all my information that I gathered on the following tables on my screen, I realized that all of these characters are female. And 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the four, 3 of them were antagonists. And one being the first transgender of the show, being the biggest villain of the series. I think this is highly inappropriate just in a sense that, we have finally a trans character. I think from my point of view, it was one of the first times I seen a transgender woman on TV like portrayed as a character. I'm sure there was more in the past, but at least from my 10-year-old, experience, this was one of the first times. And just all these sets were brutal. Maya was killed by her ex-boyfriend. Shayna was robbed and killed in a bathtub. Shayna was pushed down a pit and had head trauma, while Charlotte was stabbed in the neck by a metal rod, I believe, while in a fight. And moving on to, from the barrier gaze trope, let's go to queer baiting. So one of the main characters that it took me a little bit to realize that Allison De Laurentiis, we were all queer baited. Allison and Emily Emerson, the unhealthy relationship of that series. We see Allison learn about Emily's coming to terms with her being lesbian, but half the times Allison would just poke fun of her about it, would flirt with her, but kind of just be like, oh no, you need to get away from me. Being off and on for like a whole 7 seasons until they get engaged, but of course they're divorced. I just think that Allison was never good with Emily because, she lied. I mean, the whole point of the series was trying to find Allison, and she just ran away. She really made people believe she was killed. And how awful is it to hear that someone you loved just ran away and lied to you and makes you feel like such traumatizing emotions. I guess it's uncomfortable. And just again, just having her lie, being a big bully towards other people, it's just why is the show promoting all these like red flags to be okay? Or why are they or just in general, like why push the relationship so much for it not to work? Like we all have our problems, but I think just if these girls would have got married and stayed together and have a happily ever after, all of these like issues with Allison would have probably just been, just the past. But again, they never give the opportunity for queer people to be happy. In conclusion, so television shows have misrepresented the LGBTQIA community, harming them with queer baiting and the barrier gaze trope. The show Pretty Little Liars misrepresents queer couples along with the overportrayal of queer individuals, showing queer characters not receiving happy endings and or mental wellness. It's disappointing to find characters and in which fans can relate to, having them get torn apart by showrunners. Queer media is huge and there's so much to discover. Overall, queer baiting and the bury your gays trope is well worked into television series. There needs to be change. And those are my references, and that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.